I'm going to ask on two issues, the use of chemical weapons and the role of Russia. You have all referred to that. In April, as you pointed out, Ms. Pletka, the White House sent a letter to Congress that said intelligence agencies assessed chemical weapons had been used in Syria with varying degrees of confidence. And yesterday, as you said, France and Britain announced that they have confirmed that sarin had been used several times in the Syrian conflict. What should the United States and other responsible nations do to ensure that Assad's chemical weapons aren't used further if these reports are true? How can we prevent the theft or transfer by or to terrorist groups? How can we approach the difficult task of securing and safely dismantling the stockpile? How can we receive assurances from the opposition forces to allow us to do this if they succeed in ousting Assad? And turning to Russia, as we know, Russian arms have helped lead to the escalation of violence and bombings, and the addition of Russian weapons, whether they've been used totally or not, to the theater heightens tensions across the region, fearing that these advanced weapon systems could fall into the wrong hands, be turned against the U.S. or Israel. Russia clearly has a financial interest in arming Syria, has no interest in seemingly to stop selling arms to Assad, and the latest sales announcement not only caused harm in Syria, but harms the diplomatic relations between U.S. and Russia and to try to broker a peace between the warring parties. How can we leverage our power to convince Russia to stop arming Assad and his forces, to stop its support for the regime, to try to negotiate a peaceful settlement that will bring this bloody conflict to an end? And if Russia continues to arm Assad, despite our best efforts to get Moscow to stop, would sanctions against Russia be an effective tool in our diplomatic toolbox to facilitate this? And we'll start with Mr. Badran, if you could keep the answers brief so we could get to three of them.
Thank you. With regard to the Russian weapon system, it's important to understand what that means for Russia. On the one hand, the Russian position on Syria has not changed. They have an interest in the survival of this regime. It is a foothold for them in the region, and it's an opportunity to sabotage U.S. interests as well. But now what happened also is that they're giving these advanced strategic weapons, be they the S-300 anti-aircraft or the anti-naval missiles that they gave. Those things now are effectively in the hand of an IRGC base on the Mediterranean. And this is something that we have to look at when we look at Israel's reaction to these things. It's important to draw the lesson from their actions. The Israelis have made...
Let me just interrupt you and just get to the other two, because we'll have 2 minutes.
So, briefly on the question. Briefly on the question of chemical weapons, there's no way to secure those chemical weapons through any of the steps that I advocated. A no-fly zone is not going to secure chemical weapons. Neither is taking out Assad's air power. Neither is arming the opposition. The only way to secure chemical weapons 100% is if we put troops on the ground and we take them ourselves. And we don't want to do that. None of us have recommended it. I didn't hear anybody on the dais recommend it either. Nobody thinks this is a good idea. That means that if you preclude that option, you require somebody on the ground to win. Assad wins, Iran, as Tony said, Iran, Assad have these weapons. Of course, they've had them all along. It didn't concern us as much 2 years ago. If the opposition wins, if the wrong guys in the opposition continue to prevail, and they are right now the best armed, when you talk about arms getting into the hands of bad guys, let me promise you, arms are already in the hands of bad guys. Arms are in the hands of the worst guys. It's the better, and I appreciate John's statement, because of course there's no good here. But the better guys are the least well-armed. The bad guys are the best armed. The only way that we can secure these is to look for an outcome in which we can work with a party that is responsible and committed to the same or similar ideals as we. And
thank you. Let me just give the last 30 seconds to Dr. Alderman.
Madam Chair, just on the Russia issue, as I said, I think we have to first, as we negotiate with the Russians over this, we have to find alternatives, future courses of policy they like less than what we're doing. Appealing to their higher sensibilities, I think, isn't going to work. There are things we can offer that will make the Russians unhappy. There are things we can probably offer that make them happy. The Russians have a serious concern with terrorism and jihadism in the Caucasus. We may have things we can help them with, and I think that ultimately we have to be negotiating better, not appealing to their higher instincts, but to their interests and understanding what those interests are.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Deutsch.